You're watching Capital Connection from the Illinois State Capitol.
Welcome back. Now, a few weeks ago, we told you about how Governor Pritzker hinted at the possibility for future tax cuts in Illinois. It's a very rare idea here in the state of Illinois. But joining us now is one of the senators that's hoping to hold him to his word. It's Senator Jill Tracy. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So you and a few of your Republican colleagues have introduced a package of tax cuts, tax credits that would essentially follow up on the talk that the governor had earlier this month. And yours in particular focuses on child care, but there are some others that focus on continuing the grocery sales tax as well as a pharmaceutical sales tax and Ameren taxes or Ameren utility bill costs as well. Why are these the areas in particular that you guys think are the primary ones to focus on when we're talking about tax?
Well, they're the basic necessities for people's lives. The inflationary factor in the state is very high, and it's really affecting them. And on the utility costs in the Ameren territory, we've heard since last July when Ameren sent out letters, alerted their customers that due to the high costs of the bidding on the MISO grid that Ameren territory falls within, that the prices were going to increase. So they did give that warning, and unfortunately it almost immediately happened. And people are looking at like 90% increase to their utility bills. For instance, a person that works in my office in Quincy, she is a single mom with 2 children. She rents a small bungalow house, and the upstairs is even rented to someone else. She sets her thermostat on 58. And we had a pretty cold December, but they've incorporated electric blankets and the like, but they still are finding that their utility costs have just really maxed out their budget. And when you're faced with choosing between paying your utility bill to pay that and not have it fall in arrears, and buying food for your children, that's a real problem. And so there was a bill, last lame duck, that passed that did appropriate rebates in the amount of $200 million for the Ameren customers, but it was never appropriated. And so we're just saying, hey, we've got rainy day fund, we have what the governor was calling a surplus, we've had good revenues, and that's why he was mentioning tax cuts. This was preceding, even when he said that statement, the bill was passed. Let's fund it, give these people real relief right now that would mean a lot to their budgets.
And that's also an interesting, the fact that wasn't funded, that also is a big difference between the way we've seen Northern Illinois and Central and Southern Illinois treated. Obviously, Ameren territory is a lot of Central and Southern Illinois, whereas the northern parts, they did see, there has been some utility relief for the other utility companies in the state, but Ameren was specifically targeted in the November.
Right, and a lot of that has to do with the difference in the 2 grids, the MISO and the PJM. Ameren had to go to market when the rates were high, the capacity was limited, and so they're locked in on that, and then the Ameren customers see the high cost of their utility bills.
So I wonder, just the negotiations around tax cuts, obviously it's one thing to say, hey, maybe we should have tax cuts, it's a whole other thing to follow through on them.
Right, and we met with the governor's office last week. By the way, we all signed a letter, all the Republicans, and of course the bill that originally passed was Senator Beltz, so he's a Democrat from Metro East. So we've met with the governor's office already to talk about helping us. We offered several solutions, and this was one, but longer relief. This is a very short term, but it would help. And then we've also introduced bills that would provide longer term relief.
How, from the the Republican Party perspective, the super minority perspective, can you hold the governor and politicians, Democrats in the building to their word on the tax cut proposals? I mean, how do you make sure that this follows through and people, taxpayers see the benefits
Well,
of this?
I saw it as a good step that he met with us, and we're going to talk again about it next week. I mean, he's the governor for all the state of Illinois, and he has to recognize that a 90% increase in utility bills, that's not going to go away. It's not seasonal. It is a continual problem right now. I would hope he would be attentive to this when people are suffering.
From just the broader look at this entire package of proposals, you mentioned these are the everyday costs. These are tax cuts on those. I think when people hear tax cuts, they might think income tax. They may think some of those other, the regular taxes they're paying on their, their paycheck, for instance. If the state is going to talk tax cuts, is it better to target those, everyday costs that, maybe are moving, maybe their general revenue fund, maybe they're specifically allotted to certain programs? Is that the way to go over, maybe the broad income tax approach?
Well, the grocery tax and prescription tax is 1%, but nevertheless, it's there. Many states don't even tax that because it's a necessity. One of my bills, the child care tax credit, if you ask people in Illinois, first of all, if they can find daycare, that's one thing, because it's many places you have whole counties that affordable child care is not there. And plus, it's astounding how much families are having to pay for the cost of daycare, whether it's Springfield, Carbondale, or Chicago. It really is impacting their budget. And we want people to return to work. So whether the mother or the father have to stay home because that child care is too expensive becomes a real problem. It hurts all of Illinois if you don't have your workforce that wants to work out working. We know how many help wanted signs we see everywhere. And so we won't have a really thriving economy till we get our workforce back after the pandemic.
How does that pair with the governor's proposals around early childhood already? He's talking about preschool for all, and and having these programs available to many more people across the state. How does the tax credit pair with that if we're talking about people, having the access?
Right. Well, up to a certain point, you have state subsidized child care already, the payments. So we're talking about those that fall below a $49,000 income. They still are greatly impacted, and if they're facing a child care bill of $4,000 a month for their children, they really, how are they going to return to work? They have to do that factoring into their budget. So you don't have a healthy economy until you have your workforce fully implemented and back to work if they want to do so.
Well, Senator Jill Tracy, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
We'll be right back.